welcome back to another episode of Sister Sharpens Sister. My name is Karen. You will see Dalena with the greenish brown background, and then Shelon and her two beautiful young ladies, Gemma and Anna, who's drinking right now. And today we are doing a story challenge set forth by Miss Gemma. Gemma, do you want to remind us of the parameters of the story that we were all supposed to write?
So, so we were supposed to have like different characters and stuff, and a setting and a time. So Layla was one of the characters who's 19 years old. Joseph was one of the characters who was also 19. Ben is 15. Penelope is 13. It took place in the 1800s in a farm town.
All right. Now, who's going first? Hi. Editing Karen coming to you to say that the following stories are protected by copyright under the U.S. copyright laws. Each story is the property of the individual reading the story aloud and may not, under any circumstances, be reproduced in any format without express written consent of said owner. All rights are reserved.
Mommy, you should go first.
My story is
Fine, Anna, you go first.
You're the
Yeah,
one who
let's
did
start with, we'll go shortest to longest, which I think we'll put Dee Dee last.
I have 5,200 words.
I don't think I have 5,200 words.
Okay, Dee Dee and Shelon are competing to see who can be the most like Stephen King and just kind of like come up with a bunch of words and put them on a piece of paper.
Hey, Anna, yours is the shortest.
I have 4,624.
Okay,
That counts my title.
That's long.
Shelon, how many did you have?
I have 5,200 according to my computer.
Okay, well, I'm just sitting at a little over 1,200. Anna said she had the shortest, so we'll go Anna, Gemma, me, Dee Dee, then Shelon. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Miss Anna, the stage is yours, ma'am.
Okay. There was always that odd one out in the friend group. For Penelope's friend group, it was her. She wasn't weird or anything, just different. It was 1847, October 30th, a rather fine day with lots of sunshine and barely any clouds. Penelope was working on the farm while her mother was making lunch and her father was chopping down trees. Penelope's friends were coming over to hang out before Halloween and to pick out an outfit for the old Hallows Eve mansion party thrown by Joseph, a tall, handsome young man. He was many years older than Penelope, but there were lots of similarities between them. Penelope, your friends are here, called her mother from the house. Penelope ran to the door and she saw Layla, Joseph's sister. Her other friend was Ben. Now Layla and Ben were older than Penelope. Layla was 19 and oh my gosh. Layla was 19, whoa, was that like a misspelling?
Lila was 19. Her and
Joseph were twins. Okay. And Ben was 15. Ready for the best night ever? Layla asked. Layla and Ben gave each other a weird look and giggled. Oh, come on. Have a little fun, would you? Penelope laughed and went upstairs to grab her dress for the party. When she came down, both Layla and Ben gasped at the gorgeous rose color with real roses on it, freshly picked from the garden. Penelope went with Layla and Ben to their horses to get their outfits. As soon as Penelope saw their outfits, she screamed, "Oh, do try it on, they're beautiful." Thanks, both Layla and Ben said at the same time. Let's go get ready, Ben said excitedly. For 2 hours, they were up in Penelope's room doing makeup, hair, getting their dresses and suits on. When they went downstairs, they looked like they were meant to be in a magazine. Let's go, Layla, oh my gosh. Let's go, Layla said. At the party, of course, the first person they talked to was Joseph. Joseph was at the door, so you couldn't just be rude and not say hi. Glad you guys could come, Penelope, Ben, and obviously Lila. Oh my gosh, Joseph said with that thick Western accent that he had. Layla looked at Penelope with that look they gave each other when they saw food. They quickly scrambled to the food and started hoarding it down their throats. That's when they felt an feeling in their stomach, like that feeling when you have to poo, but worse. Their night ended up being a total disappointment due to their digestive system. The days to come were the best. Due to their digestive system. Oh, that's funny. That's great.
Oh my gosh. Anna, that was really good.
Thank you. Funny. Their night was a disappointment due to their digestive system.
That's funny.
That is funny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my story is a little scary. It's very dark.
Okay.
But Karen, I know you guys will like this. Okay.
All right.
My story is called Shrieks.
Oh.
Okay. The thunder roared as the rain cried out on the town. The mountains that seemed to guard the town loomed as if they were sleeping giants. But soon the giants will awaken. It was September 30th, 1829. On a gloomy Wednesday afternoon, Joseph was out skipping rocks in the pond by the local store where everyone went to on Wednesday nights. Joseph was good friends with the mayor's son, Ben. He was selfish, rich, cute, blonde, lover boy. All the girls were drooling over him. But Ben was crushing on Joseph's little sister, Penelope. Joseph, father wants you inside before dark, said Penelope. Go to your chores, Pen. I'll be inside in a minute, he said back. Smiling, Joseph skipped one last rock, then stood up slowly, then turned around. Boo! A girl snuck up behind him. He jumped. Whoa! Who are you? He said. Oh, I'm the mayor's daughter. You probably haven't seen me around. My father usually doesn't let me outside of the house, but I snuck out. Joseph thought for a moment. So, you're Ben's sister? The girl nodded her head. Name's Layla. Joseph laughed, then introduced himself to her. You don't have a very thick accent for living here in Backridge for so long, Joseph said, trying to make a joke. I told you, I don't get out to hear everyone's voices. It's always chores, chores, and what do you know? Chores. Oh, I'm sorry. A loud shriek echoed through the mountains, interrupting him. The two turned around to face the pond. Layla's eyes widened. What in tarnation? Hey, there's the accent, said Joseph. I'm being serious. That was loud. Shouting came from the other end of the pond. Help! Ben was at the other end. Layla ran around the pond as fast as she could. Joseph jumped in, thinking it would be faster to swim to the other side. Ben was running around the trees, trying to make it to the water. Ben, get over here. Layla, jump in the water. It can't go in the water, he shouted. Layla slipped off her boots and jumped in the water. She started panting because she didn't know how to swim. Joseph swam over to her. I got you. Calm down. Ben jumped in, and from the trees, a huge moth figure flew out, blowing over the leaves. Layla let out a blood-curdling scream. Shh, said Joseph. Ben swam over to them. Don't worry, it can't go in the water, he said, out of breath. The creature landed on the shore. It had red, glowing eyes, moth-like wings, and a body like a man. We need father now, said Ben. No, he can't know I left the house. Ben rolled his eyes. We need to slowly swim away. Joseph started paddling to the other side of the pond he was at before. The moth creature shrieked, then flew away, back into the trees. What the heck was that? Layla screamed. Joseph got out of the water, helping Layla and Ben out too. I was playing with William in the forest, and the creature landed behind us and threw William at a tree. I ran away in time for it to not get me, Ben exclaimed, tearing up, knowing he'd lost his friend. The three stood up and ran to Joseph's house. Father, there was a creature. It killed William. Please help. His father and Penelope stood up off the sofa. Layla and Ben were standing behind them. Joseph's father opened the back door to go investigate. Penelope was right behind him. Penelope peeked over her father's shoulder, then screamed. William's body lay on the back porch. What? What is it? Ben cried out. Penelope and her father moved out of the way, revealing the body. Ben broke down crying. Penelope ran over to him and gave him a hug. All right, what's going on? Said the father, also known as Sheriff Smith. Sheriff Smith cocked his rifle with an angry look on his face. He motioned for them to move out of the way of the front door, so Joseph pulled Layla out of the way. The sheriff stomped outside to see the whole town dead in a pile right in front of the pond. Layla fainted. Father, what's happening? Said Joseph. It felt like a dream, but it was too real. His father didn't answer, only looked at him. Layla woke up. Shut the door, she said. So that's what the sheriff did. Layla was breathing heavily. Ben, mother and father were out there, dead. They both started crying. Joseph stood up, sopping wet from being in the pond. Okay, this is weird and creepy, he yelled. Tell me about it, said Penelope with a scared look on her face. Y'all, there's no way one creature did this to the whole town. In just a little time that we came into your house, said Layla, looking confused. Joseph agreed. I know what it is, Sheriff Smith confessed. It's a Mothman. And that's the end.
That's good.
That's good,
But
yeah.
it's not done. I'll continue it.
Okay. Murphysville had always been a quiet little farming town tucked between the rolling hills and the dark outline of Iron Peak mines. But lately the townsfolk spoke of strange noises echoing from the old mining shaft. Chains would rattle, picks would clang, and every once in a while a mournful whistle could be heard whispering on the breeze. Some said the ghost of a miner was haunting the tunnels, but others said that the mine's long-lost fortune had awakened a curse. Layla Jenkins, a 19-year-old who didn't believe in curses and felt that she was more practical than most of those in Murphysville, sat in front of Millie's General Store. There we go. Her younger brother, by just a few minutes, Joseph, loved a mystery too much, but he didn't let superstition stand in his way. Together with their neighbors, 15-year-old Ben Carter and his little sister Penelope, who insisted everyone call her Penny. They had always made a habit of sniffing out trouble the way their loyal coonhound Duke would sniff out rabbits. The evening air was cool, with the smell of wood and coal-burning stoves signaling the start of autumn. The four of them were gathered at the hitching post outside of Millie's General Store. Oil lamps were glowing in the windows, painting long golden streaks across the dusty road. A few wagons would creak past, their wheels crunching on the gravel. I heard old man Flinkerton was last seen near the mine last week, Joseph said, leaning against the hitching post. But he was supposed to have left town after the mine shut down a long time ago. Layla frowned. Fred Flinkerton, the mine owner? He left in a hurry after the cave-in. Half the miners never even got their pay. Penny adjusted the ribbon on her hat. Maybe he's come back to pay them now, she said with a grin. But Ben pushed his spectacles up his nose and squinted at the distant ridge. Or maybe he's back for the gold vein that the miners found before it collapsed. Layla arched an eyebrow. Gold vein? I thought this was an iron mine. Ben opened a leather-bound notebook that was filled with scribbles. Not according to the records in the town hall. There was talk of a small pocket of gold ore that was found. But the day after that discovery, the mine shaft collapsed and Finkerton skipped town. Joseph's grin got bigger. Sounds like we've got ourselves a mystery. and Duke barked once, his tail wagging as if to second that opinion. That night, with their lanterns in hand, the group set out for Iron Peak. The dirt path at the edge of town led up the rocky slopes beyond. The mine loomed ahead, its entrance framed by rotting timbers and weeds. The sign above it, Iron Peak, number 3, hung crooked and swayed in the breeze. A chill swept across the group, and Duke growled low in his throat. Probably just the wind, Layla murmured, though she did tighten her grip on her lantern. As they stepped inside, the air grew cold and heavy. Drips of water echoed in the darkness, and their lanterns threw trembling shadows across the walls, making the tunnels seem alive. Suddenly, a clanking sound rang out from deeper inside the mine, something that sounded like metal hitting stone. Then came the low, hollow whistle of a miner's tune. Penny gasped and grabbed Ben's sleeve. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Before Ben could answer, Duke barked furiously and raced ahead into the dark. "Duke, come back!" Joseph shouted, but the hound's paws thundered down the passage. The group followed as quickly as they could, stumbling over loose stones and abandoned tools. Then from the darkness ahead a shape appeared, stooped, glowing faintly like light off of a moonlit water. It wore a miner's coat and a helmet, and in its spectral hand gleamed a rusted pickaxe. "The ghostly miner!" Penny whispered. Ben's eyes widened as he took a step back, and he stumbled over a loose rail. Falling backwards, he landed with a dull thud. His spectacles flew from his face. "My glasses!" he yelled. "I can't see a thing without my glasses." So he turned to his hands and knees and frantically searched the ground. Joseph grabbed his lantern and crouched to help, while Layla pulled Penny away from the looming specter. The figure raised its head. Face was pale and hollow-eyed, and it let out a sigh that sounded through the tunnel. Then it vanished, gone as quickly as it appeared. "Found them!" Ben exclaimed, jamming his spectacles back on just as the echoing sigh faded. "Did anyone see where it went?" "Out that side tunnel," Layla said. "Come on." The side tunnel sloped downward and ended in a collapsed shaft. Duke sniffed near the rocks, whining, and Joseph held up his lantern and said, "Look, footprints. They look like fresh ones." "They're too clean for a ghost," Ben said. "Exactly," Layla rolled her eyes. "Ghosts don't leave footprints." Joseph followed the trail to a wooden door that was set in a stone wall, which was strange, since most mine tunnels don't have doors. He gave it a shove, and it creaked open to reveal a small chamber stacked with crates and mining tools. A narrow table set against the far wall, covered with maps, candles, and a few gold-specked stones. "Looks like someone's been camping out," Joseph said as he kicked a bedroll, "and testing ore samples." Ben examined a map under the light. "These are recent. Whoever it is has been digging in the old tunnels again." Penny found a scrap of paper. "This says FF at the bottom. Fred Flinkerton?" Layla's eyes narrowed. "So he's not a ghost. He's hiding here, probably trying to find that gold." Just then a voice echoed from behind them. "You should not have come here, kids." They whirled around, and standing in the doorway was Fred Flinkerton himself. Older, grizzled, his clothes dusted with mine soot, his eyes gleamed in the lantern light. "I told everyone I left Murphysville," he said, stepping closer, "but I came back for what belongs to me." "That gold belongs to the families of the miners who died here," Layla snapped. Flinkerton sneered. "They're gone, and so is anyone who gets in my way." He raised the rusty pickaxe, but Duke lunged with a bark and knocked it from his hand. "Run!" shouted Joseph. They bolted through the tunnels. Duke was leading the way. Flinkerton's boots thundered behind them, and the kids ducked into a side passage, panting. We need to trap him somehow, Ben said, pushing his spectacles up. If we can block the exit, that'll do, said Layla, spotting an old ore cart that was sitting close by. Working quickly, they loosened the wooden braces that were holding it in place. And as footsteps echoed closer, Layla whispered, "Now!" They shoved the cart with all their strength, and it rumbled down the track and slammed into a support beam and collapsed the tunnel entrance, just as Flinkerton had tried to get through. And dust billowed everywhere. When it cleared, Flinkerton was lying on the ground, coughing and covered in dirt. His ghostly glow came from a tin lantern he had rigged with phosphor powder, the same kind that was used in signal lamps. Penny shook her head. So that's the ghost? Just you and some fancy light tricks? Flinkerton scowled, and I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids. Layla smiled faintly as Joseph and Ben tied his hands with some old twine that had been in the cart. The sheriff's going to be surprised to see you, she said. By sunrise, the sheriff had hauled Flinkerton off to the county jail, and word spread fast. Murphysville's ghostly miner had been nothing more than a greedy man chasing gold and scaring folks away to keep them from finding out. As the four friends sat outside the general store the next morning, Duke stretched out at their feet, belly full of biscuits. "Think that's the last ghost we'll see for a while?" Joseph asked. Ben adjusted his spectacles and said, "I doubt it. There's always something happening around here." Penny grinned as she tucked away the bag of dog treats. "I'm always up for some excitement, and so is Duke." Layla chuckled while rocking in the chair on the boardwalk. She grinned at Joseph as she set out the checkers on the barrel between them. "Well, while we wait for the next mystery, who's up for some checkers?" The end.
That was like Scooby-Doo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what you were going for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally her inspiration.
Now I got a bit of a cough, so I'm gonna apologize in advance. Okay, so I'm sorry if I cough. My title is An Abyss So Black. An Abyss So Black, copyright 2025 by Dalena Smith. So, I stared at the menacing October sky, paying no attention to the soaking wet ground as we left the barn. The funereal sky was so heavy, it felt like the inside of a house with only opaque windows for slivers of light to sleep through. I slipped, and Joseph, my paternal twin brother, steadied me. "Be careful, Layla," Joseph said. I started glancing to the ground as we walked. The dead waterlogged leaves carpeting the ground squelched and sloshed with each step. It reminded me of wash day. Some of the late leaves even surrendered bubbles underneath our feet. The rain started letting up as we got closer to the house. We continued walking, and I noticed the ground sloped into a depression as if something had been removed from underneath. I looked up to see what was once a majestic oak sitting on the edge of the depressed ground. "Is that the tree lightning struck?" Penelope, my younger sister, asked. "Yes, Penny, it is," Joseph answered. The mangled tree towered over us on the left of the path from the barn to the house. Our glances rested on the contorted tree as we trudged past on the depressed ground. The once majestic oak was twisted and gnarled into a shadow of its former grand stature. We walked out of the depressed ground, and a shiver came over me as a cold wind blew through, making the tree's naked branches moan. It sounded like it was in pain. When we were just moments away from the front steps, a thick fog quickly slithered from the forest, silencing the air and swallowing the house. The front door to the house now looked like it was the entrance to the fog, not the house. We reached the dilapidated steps to the porch. We climbed the steps with caution, taking special care when the steps groaned underneath our feet. I don't know why Father and his workers didn't repair the steps first. The four of us stood face to face with the entrance. Father said the door was in remarkable shape and didn't need repairing in the slightest. He was correct. The door was lovely. It was stained dark walnut and the panels of glass were intricately etched with various obscure shapes. At least that's what I thought they were. Joseph let Penny, who at 13 was the youngest of us, carry the key to the house's front entrance. She stepped forward and inserted the key into the lock. It gave her a jolting shock when she did. She snapped her hand away from the key sitting in the lock. She reached for the key to unlock the door but stopped. She was apprehensive about touching it again. Ben stepped up to the door and opened it without incident. We looked through the doorway, but it was dark. We couldn't really see anything. Joseph and Ben stepped through the entrance and lit hurricane lamps hanging on the wall opposite each side of the door. Ben was only 15, so he followed Joseph's lead on what to do. Our brothers walked through the first floor, lighting lamps in all the rooms as Penny and I stepped inside. We saw dusty furnishings in the middle of the parlor and dirty baseboards along the room's floor. I looked closely at the wide oak planks of the floor and saw the sheen was gone and there were several scuffs and scratches. I decided the floor would need to be refinished with oil and wax once the cleaning was done. A moderate staircase with a simple railing made its way to the second floor against a wall to the right, and there was a built-in wardrobe on the wall at the bottom of the staircase. All in all, the parlor was nice, just dirty and worn. As Joseph and Ben re-entered the parlor from the dining room, I looked out the front door and saw a mist creeping across the porch like a feral predator closing in on its prey, silent and patient. A raven's harsh rolling craw. Hold on, I need a sound effect here. A raven's harsh rolling craw echoed as Joseph closed the door. Penny and I carried one of the hurricane lamps with us as we looked around the main floor. We didn't want to take a chance that we needed one and not have one with us. We walked from the parlor to the dining room and noticed the two rooms had fireplaces sharing the same chimney. The dining room was decent sized, with built-in cabinets on the right wall and a built-in buffet on the far wall. The room was in similar disarray as the parlor, dusty furnishings and built-ins, dirty baseboards, and a worn floor. We left the dining room and walked into the kitchen. The kitchen was large, with a fireplace abutting the porch on its back wall to the right of the outside door. The sink with the pitcher pump was on the same wall, but to the left of the door. There was also a cast iron stove along the left wall for cooking instead of using the fireplace. So the house was modern with its pitcher pump sink and cast iron stove. Penny and I stood near the back door and looked through the panes of glass that also had similar intricate etchings as the front door. The fog was so thick we could hardly see anything beyond the door except a wall of white. "I'm not going out there," Penny said, shaking her head back and forth. "Neither am I." "What's that?" "What's what?" "That," I said, pointing out the door's window panes. "Is that a person coming onto the porch?" Penny asked. "Joseph!" we yelled in unison. Joseph and Ben came into the kitchen as Penny and I watched the dark shape disappear into the fog. "What is it?" Joseph asked. "We thought we saw a person outside on the porch." Penny quickly blurted out her words as she pointed out the door. Joseph looked through the door's panes of glass. "Out there? In that fog? No. There's no way anyone could be out in that. Not without being completely lost," he said. Penny and I will set out the food Father left for us earlier today and look around the kitchen. Then we'll be in the parlor to help clean the room and the furnishings. Joseph and Ben nodded their heads as they left the kitchen. Penny and I saw the basket we prepared yesterday for Father to bring to the house. We set our lamp next to it on the counter. We spread a cloth on the clean counter and set the prepared food from the basket on the cloth. We arranged 4 loaves of bread, cheese, jerked meats, fresh apples, pears, some carrots, and 2 jars of apple butter with a butter knife. We could come and take food we wanted when we got hungry, and the pitcher pump made it simple to get fresh water from the well for washing and drinking. Once the food was out, I walked around the large kitchen. I saw there was a door on the right wall past the fireplace, along with open shelves holding various kitchen supplies of bowls, cookware, glass jars, and the like. I took the lamp, walked to the door, and opened it. It was a rather large pantry with multiple, mostly empty shelves and cabinets on the walls and floor. In the far right corner was a small crate. It looked fairly new, and the lid was offset. I walked to the crate and set the lamp on a shelf above it. I stood the lid on its side against the crate and looked inside. I jumped in fright when I saw a face staring back at me. I calmed when I realized it was a death mask, off-white and sullen in its death stare. I slightly bent my knees and reached into the trunk to remove the mask. There were 3 masks stacked on top of each other. I set them separately on the floor next to the crate and stared at them. The first mask I saw, the one that startled me, was so lifelike. It was a man's face whose facial hair was visible in the plaster that made the mask. I wondered how the plaster didn't weigh down the facial hair. I saw his thin lips through his trimmed beard and mustache. He looked like he was frowning, but I suppose lots of people are unhappy because of their deaths. His eyebrows were also visible above his closed eyes. I saw the wrinkles around his eyes and could make out the lines between his upper and lower eyelids, but I didn't see any eyelashes. I did see a scar on his forehead above his left eye. It looked like it would have also extended into his hairline when he was alive. I couldn't help but think what may have caused the scar. Did a horse or donkey kick him? Did he fall? Did a large piece of farming equipment hit him? Had he been in a fight? Did the injury cause his death? Was he murdered? I didn't have any answers to my questions. I glanced at the other 2 masks and noticed one was also of a man with a very narrow face. There was no facial hair except his eyebrows sitting above his sunken eyes. The right side of his thin lips drooped down considerably more than the left side. The man appeared to have been ill before his death. The third mask looked to be of a woman. I noticed some of the obscure shapes etched in the eyebrows. But the crate caught my eye again, so I ignored this mask. I looked inside the crate and saw a book sitting by itself on the bottom. I couldn't tell much about the book because there wasn't enough light. The only light in the pantry was the lamp sitting above the crate. And the sides of the crate made shadows covering the book. What are those? I jumped as Penny spoke. You startled me. Oh, sorry. They're death masks. That's creepy, Penny said, pointing to the masks. Put them in the kitchen. You want me to touch those? They were on dead people's faces. Please take them to the other room. Penny hesitantly shuffled her feet as she walked toward me to take the masks. I reached in the crate for the book. Ouch, I said, and pulled my left hand out of the crate with blood dripping from the tip of my ring finger. What happened? Penny asked with her focus on me instead of taking the masks. Something cut me. I reached in my pocket, pulled out a handkerchief, and placed it over the cut. Penny reluctantly reached for the masks, taking 2 of them. I slightly bent my knees and picked up the third mask and handed it to her. She took the masks with her into the kitchen. I tried to get a better look inside the crate. I didn't want to get cut again, but the lamp was in the wrong place for me to see past the shadows in the crate. Penny returned to the pantry, drying her hands on a towel we stashed in the basket. You washed your hands? Yes, those masks were on dead people. You need to wash your hands, especially after you cut your finger. I'll wash them later. Can you hold the lamp directly over the crate so I can see inside better? I don't want to cut myself again. Sure. Penny draped the towel over her left shoulder and then grabbed the lamp, holding it directly over the crate as I again reached in for the book. I pulled it out and was mesmerized by its beauty. The cover appeared to be made of some kind of leather that was aged black. Etched on the front was a blackthorn tree with its full blossoms in bloom. The branches of blooms encompassed the top of the front cover, and its roots ran in all directions along the bottom. The roots of this etched blackthorn extended to the back. I turned the book over and saw a wild and sprawling yew tree encompassing the back cover. The tree's branches and roots were twisted and gnarled in a hypnotizing, meandering design. The etches were a lighter color than the rest of the book and were a lovely contrast to the darkened leather. I followed the etchings as best as I could and saw the tree's branches and roots met on a leather latch, securing the book closed with a gold clasp. I saw some of my blood on the book's cover and used my handkerchief to wipe it away. Is that a Bible? Penny asked. I don't know, maybe. I held the book with both hands as we walked back into the kitchen. If it was a Bible, I didn't want to place it on the floor. Where are the death masks? I put them in the dining room on the table. There's more room there. We walked to the dining room and I put the book on the table next to the 3 death masks. I clicked open the gold latch of the book we thought was a Bible and read the words on the first page. In memoriam, with deepest sympathy and enduring affection, We dedicate this album to those loved ones who have passed from this world into the next. This album is a sacred keepsake in memory of those we cherish. This is a mourning book, not a Bible. That's also creepy, Penny said. I turned the page to see 2 photos on the second page. I saw where my injured finger left a small amount of blood on the first page. I took a corner of the handkerchief and tried to wipe away the blood, but it didn't work. The blood stayed. The first photo on the second page was of a man, a woman, and a baby together in a coffin. Their faces looked like porcelain and were serene and peaceful. They looked as if they were in a deep and troubled sleep. The second photo showed a woman from the side holding a child, a girl who was maybe 5 years old. The woman's eyes were hidden in shadow. The child's eyes were open but lifeless, like the eyes of a doll. I saw etched on the page near the outer edge and near the spine of the book obscure shapes. I followed the shapes with my fingers, but quickly stopped when I realized I was using my injured hand and left more blood on the book's pages. The shapes looked like the ones etched in the panes of glass on the front and back door. I wondered if the obscure shapes were actually writing in a foreign language. I thought about Egyptian hieroglyphs I had read about in the paper. I turned the page to see 2 more photos. The first was of 4 children, a girl, 2 boys, and another girl standing in that order. 3 of the children's eyes were open, and they appeared to be uncomfortable. The 4th child, the girl on the left, her eyes were fixed with dilated pupils and what looked to be restrained shock and fear. The second photo on this page was of an elderly man sitting in a high-backed chair dressed in what appeared to be an expensive suit. His arms stretched on the chair's rests, with his fingers dangling, still and lifeless, over the edges. His face was hollow and sickly. His opened eyes showed desperate panic confined in their dilated pupils. This may be the man used to make the narrow-faced death mask. I started to turn to the next page when Penny said, "Layla, stop looking at that creepy book." "Are you 2 finished here? What are you looking at?" Ben asked. "It's a mourning album," Penny said. "Oh, well, that's disturbing." This is when I thought I saw the face of one of the death masks move. It was the mask of the woman. I focused on the mask and saw a red mark near one of its eyes. I left my blood on the mask when I handed it to Penny. Then I thought I saw its mouth move ever so slightly, as if it was starting to open. At that moment, I was sure I was delusional, and I dismissed it. Joseph entered the kitchen. "Are you ladies?" He saw the death masks and stopped before finishing his sentence. Joseph continued, "Layla, what are you doing?" "We found these in a crate in the pantry," I said to him. "Your finger," he said, pointing to my hand. My finger started bleeding again, getting more blood on the mourning album and dripping on the dining table, and dripping on the dining table. I let go of the album and wrapped the handkerchief tighter around my finger. This is when we heard something in the kitchen. We walked to the kitchen door and stepped through. From the other side of the outside door, we heard a heavy, grating scratch, scratch, scratch. The scratching on the bottom of the door was on the bottom of the door, and it sounded as if a large animal was trying to dig its way inside the house. The 4 of us stared at the door. All we saw was a thick fog on the other side of the window panes. "What's that?" Penny asked. "I don't know," Joseph answered, shaking his head. "Scratch, scratch, scratch." "Do you all see anything?" Penny asked. Joseph stepped closer to the door, trying to see whatever it was through the panes of glass. He stepped back to us. "There's nothing there but fog. Let's go back to the parlor," Joseph said. Once we were in the parlor, I started blinking over and over again. I didn't realize until then that I was staring and not blinking when I was in the kitchen. We were all a bit frightened, but had calmed after entering the parlor, until we heard scratch, scratch, scratch. The scratching followed us to the parlor. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The porch was wraparound, so I'm sure it was easy for whatever it was to move from one door to the other. We all stared at the front door, looking through the etched glass panes. All we saw was the fog, but I focused on the etchings, the obscure shapes. I swear they were moving and changing shapes. My fear grew so much that my knees started knocking together. I pointed to the etched letters moving and changing shapes. Joseph and Penny both squinted their eyes, focusing on the window etchings. Ben was frozen in his stare toward the door. Joseph and I were 19, but since he was born first, he was technically the oldest, so we all looked to him for guidance. Back to the dining room. There are no doors or windows there, Joseph said as he grabbed Ben out of his frozen stare. We quickly moved to the dining room. The scratching stopped momentarily. Scrape, scrape, critch, critch. The sound echoed in the large chimney, and then a single stone fell into the fireplace. I looked to Joseph and realized I was again not blinking, so I blinked quickly several times to moisten my eyes. It was at this moment we heard what sounded like a voice coming from the dining table. Help me. It was a faint, childlike voice. We looked at each other and then at the album on the table with the pages open to the 4 children and the old man. We watched as the deceased girl's eyes blinked several times and her lips moved, struggling to say, "Help me." Then we saw the old man's eyes blink several times and his mouth moved. He struggled to speak in a raspy yet weak and childlike voice. Help me, help me, out of here. Didn't think it was true. My heart was banging against my ribs so hard I thought it might force itself out of my chest. And tears flowed from my eyes like a downpour of rain. I felt my head shaking profusely on top of my neck. I had no control over my body, and the only sounds I made were mouse-like squeaks. All 4 of us were frozen in place. We just stared at the photos. At this point, my stomach started to feel uneasy, and the sudden smell of burnt matches didn't help. Then we heard sharp, snapping, crunching sounds. The death mask I dismissed earlier, the one I thought I saw starting to move, the one with my bloody fingerprint on it, cracked open its eyes, revealing not empty sockets, but glowing embers, red hot and alive. The other 2 masks remained sealed. With more snapping and crunching, the mouth of the one death mask slowly opened into an oval, revealing a black pit. An abyss so black, so dark and consuming that the light from the hurricane lamps in the dining room didn't penetrate the darkness. The pit seemed to absorb all the light from the lamps. The death mask's mouth kept getting bigger and bigger. Unleashed from the black abyss, we heard raspy voices screaming in unceasing agony. We heard guttural voices of pain being muffled. We heard voices gasping for air, and what sounded like whips cracking, chains clattering, and bones breaking. We heard loud thuds and what sounded like many, many large beasts clawing to get out of the black pit. The clawing was similar to what we heard in the chimney, only magnified. The sounds were almost deafening. I was frozen. I couldn't move a single muscle. All I could do was shake in utter fear, squeak like a mouse, and stare at the death mask with the black pit mouth leading to what I believe was hell. Uncontrolled tears continued rolling out of my eyes and down my cheeks. Then I heard Penny. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. She was crying, but managed to recite the Lord's Prayer. I also wanted to recite the prayer. I wanted to pray like she was, but all I could do was cry, shake, squeak, and stare at the dining table with its curio of macabre artifacts. So I closed my eyes and concentrated on the words Penny spoke. I heard Joseph join her. I concentrated on the words of the Lord's Prayer and breathed slowly through my nose. I started to feel calmer, and my uncontrolled tears stopped. I felt someone grab my arm and pull me away from the death table. It was Penny. I later learned that Joseph grabbed Ben. We moved to the parlor as Penny and Joseph continued reciting the Lord's Prayer over and over and over. With each recitation, their words grew louder and louder, and Penny was no longer crying. I opened my eyes just before Joseph opened the front door. The fog had cleared from the front of the house. We scrambled out of the house and toward the barn. We didn't care about how muddy the ground was or how slick the waterlogged leaves were. We ran as fast as we could to the barn for the horses. We passed the mangled oak and saw some of its roots piercing through the ground. We reached the barn. Where's Joseph? I shouted. Penny, still reciting the Lord's Prayer, pointed toward the house, and I saw Joseph running toward us. He stayed long enough to lock the front door and place the key in his pocket. Ben had regained enough composure to begin preparing the horses to pull the wagon. Once Joseph arrived, they were able to get the horses hitched fairly quickly. We all climbed into the wagon, and Joseph started us home. I felt the evil behind us as we quickly traveled from the house. Joseph and Penny continued reciting the Lord's Prayer. I looked back and saw the fog chasing us. Then the roots of the old, mangled oak reached from within the earth and tethered the fog. It was like tying a beast to a tree. The roots reached out of the ground until the fog was trapped inside a knot formed from the oak's roots. Then the prison knot submerged itself and the evil into the ground. We made it safely back home and told Father and Mother of what happened. A few days later, Joseph told me he and Father, along with their minister, ventured back to the house. He said the food in the basket we left in the kitchen were not there. He also said the ground around the old mangled oak was no longer depressed. I don't really care about the food in the basket, but I do wonder what might have happened to them. I haven't seen the ground myself, and I'm not going to because I don't want to go anywhere near the house or the property ever again. I trust what Joseph told me is the truth. With my wedding this June in the year 1900, I will live far away from that house and that land. I will live in New York City with my soon-to-be husband, who is a young attorney at a prominent law firm. My aunt, my father's sister, helped arrange the marriage. Her husband is also an attorney at the law firm. I am still puzzled about the house and the land. If Father and his workers were in the house making repairs, why didn't the evil emerge when they were there? Did one of Father's workers leave the crate with the death masks and the mourning album in the pantry without Father knowing? I can't help but wonder if my blood helped awaken the evil. And what was with the mangled oak and the root knot that imprisoned the fog? I know Father still plans on planting and farming hops on the land, but I wonder if he regrets buying the abandoned house and land through a tax deed. I wonder about all of these things, but I'm not going to look for answers. I'm keeping as far away as I can from that house and that land. A minister told us the obscure shapes etched in the glass and on the one death mask and written on the pages of the mourning album were an ancient language known as cuneiform. He suggested Father replaced all of the window panes with the etchings and destroy the glass. And I am so happy Father asked our minister to take the death masks and the mourning album. I am sure he would know what to do with them. There are a few things I can't shake, though. What language is cuneiform? Where can I learn more about it? What happened to the food in the basket? I know I said I don't care about them, but I do wonder. Also, on that day in October, on our ride back to our home, somewhere, somehow, I lost the handkerchief I used on my injured finger, and it hasn't been found. So what happened to the handkerchief I used to wrap my bloody finger? I don't have answers to any of these questions, and I've said I want to stay as far away from that house and that land as I can, but I'm not sure not knowing sits well with me. But for now, I'll just keep wondering.
All right. I really don't have a title for mine yet.
Okay.
Let's name it.
Well, I'll read it and then y'all can tell
Yeah.
me what you think. How's that? All right. The air was crisp as the sun began to rise. There was a mist sitting over the lake like a blanket. Layla wished she had worn her extra petticoat on this cold October morning. She was rushing down the path, hoping that Joseph would be at the lake. She wanted to see him before he headed to town with his father. Brightwater's annual cattle sale is today. Joseph and his family, the Mackenzies, always have the best cattle in the sale. Joseph's parents, Arthur and Molly, are pillars in our town. Arthur has the best cattle farm in at least 100 miles. He serves on the town council and he pastors church. Molly is the town midwife, and no one holds a needle to her quilts. She gives one to each baby she delivers, too. The Mackenzies are well known for their fierce faith, family loyalty, and pride of their country. Arthur and Joseph's older brother, Alex, being perfect examples, both having fought in the war for the Union, leading men on the battlefield and leading them to Jesus with amazing courage. Even after all their faithful serving and obedience to God, even the Mackenzies were not immune to tragedy. The youngest of the girls, Penelope, went missing 3 years ago. Arthur and Alex had only been back a short time when it happened. Penelope was playing hide and seek in the forest by the Screaming Cave with Jackson Williams, Margaret Smith, and Ben Taylor, Layla's little brother. It was Penelope's turn to find everyone, but when so much time had passed without being found, Jackson went looking for her and the others. He found Ben and Margaret, and they searched for Penelope, but never found her. The sheriff and a search party, including about every man in the town, searched for weeks, combing the woods and the caves for any evidence of her, but nothing. No signs of a struggle, no clothes, no shoes, no blood, just nothing. Like she'd been taken up to heaven like Enoch or Elijah, no traces whatsoever. Joseph was on the dock when Layla reached the lake. He smiled and waved when he saw her. Layla's heart and steps lightened when she saw him. He removed his hat and gave her a bow as she approached. "Good morning," he said as he took her hand and kissed it. Joseph always made Layla feel special. "Good morning," she said, blushing at his gesture. They stood there for a moment, holding each other's gaze, and then Layla broke the silence. "When will you and your father be heading to town?" "About an hour from now," he replied. "Mac and Alex are already there, keeping watch over the herds." Mac had come back with Arthur and Alex from the war. They had captured him, trying to infiltrate their supply lines. He was part of the eastern band of the Cherokee tribe. He joined the Thomas Legion of Cherokee Indians and Highlanders to fight for the Confederacy. He was to try to disrupt supply lines and collect intel. The Mackenzies kept him with them for the last year of the war. They had hoped to be a better influence on him. His Cherokee name was Makanega, which means one who remembers. Joseph and Layla walked the perimeter of the lake arm in arm, asking each other silly questions like, "What's the most daring thing you've done aside from stealing the last stone?" Joseph told her a story that happened before the war. Layla knew him then, of course, but wasn't interested in stinky boys being only 10 years old. "Alex and I were repairing a weak spot in the fence where a few cattle had escaped the day before, when a storm blew up out of nowhere," he said, waving his hand at the sky. "Thunder crashed, something loud, and lightning flashed all around us. And before we knew it, the herd had spooked and we had 80 head of cattle heading right towards us." Joseph's eyes widened and his voice grew louder as he spoke. "Alex jumped on his horse and told me to stay put," which was hilarious because I never listened to him. He was trying to head them off. He was trying to head them off and keep them away from Black Bear Creek by Old Man Hoskins' farm. "Old Man Hoskins would have definitely taken the cattle that was on his land and claimed them as his own," Layla said. "He's a crankety old possum, sneaky in his business dealings and mean as a scalded hog," Layla said, looking up at Joseph as she finished, never having spoke like that in front of him. He raised his eyebrows at her and gave her a smirk as he continued. "I jumped on my horse and headed after him, but we couldn't get the herd to turn. Then I had an idea. It was loud noise and lights that had frightened them in the first place. Why not use loud noise and lights to frighten them into turning?" Joseph held his hand to his mouth. "I yelled over to Alex my idea and reached in my pocket for my flint. Alex took his shirt off and threw it at me, and I slowed just a second to grab a branch from a tree. He made a snapping motion with his wrists as if the tree were standing between them. I let Daisy's reins go so I could wrap Alex's shirt around the branch and start the fire." Layla's eyes widened. "You did what?" she exclaimed. Joseph laughed at her. Letting the reins go gave her freedom to ride as fast as she wanted, which is what we needed. Daisy is Pa's fastest horse, you know. I also couldn't strike my flint one-handed, now could I? Layla nodded. Continue, she said. Right. So I had caught up to Alex at this point, torch in hand, and started waving it at the herd. Alex took out his gun and started firing off rounds. Thanks be to God, they spooked them again and finally turned back towards our farm. We were about 100 yards from the creek. He finished proudly, smiling down at her. Well, I've never done something as daring or brave as that, she said, looking down at the path as if embarrassed. Lay, you don't have to have done anything daring, he said, stopping to look at her. I'll be daring enough for the both of us. But Layla was still staring at the path. Joseph took her chin in his hand and tilted her head up at him. Layla's breath caught in her throat, and she felt butterflies in her stomach as she looked into his sky blue eyes.
Aw.
Layla was 19 and had never been kissed before, and as nervous as she was, she hoped Joseph would be her first. Joey! A distant voice yelled. Time to go, son! Joseph sighed aloud, glancing behind him at his father, and then yelled back, Yes, Pa, coming. I can't read faster. Layla was looking at the path again. She knew she wouldn't see him until the sale was over, and that usually took a few days. A few tears started welling up in her eyes. Layla, he said in a much deeper and serious voice. Layla immediately looked up as if something was wrong. I will see you soon, he said, smiling to her. He kissed her hand again, this time lingering just a second longer than normal. Please be careful, she whispered. I will, he said, and tipped her hat at her, gave her a wink, and turned to join his father. Arthur Mackenzie put his hands on his hips and gave his son a cheeky smile as he approached. Hush, Pa, he said, walking right by him and smacking him on the shoulder. We'll be back soon, Lay. Don't worry, he yelled, reassuring her of their safe return. Chapter 2. Layla sat straight up in bed, looking around. She expected her father and mother to come running out of their room to see what had happened, but they didn't. Layla sat very still a moment, not even breathing, and listened. She could only hear the smooth breathing of her younger brother Ben and her sister Lily as they slept. Had she really heard it? Or was she just dreaming, she thought. Ben and Lily didn't stir at the sound of it. Strange. But then she was reminded that younger kids can sleep through anything. After all, she had slept through gunfire one night when she was about 10. Her pa was protecting their livestock from coyotes. He fired off 5 rounds and she didn't wake at all. The peace God gives children is amazing. They feel so safe and have no worries that they can just sleep through anything, like Jesus in the storm. Oh, what she would give to have that peace in this moment. She furrowed her brows and squinted out the window, but couldn't see anything. Then the realization hit her. She couldn't see anything. No stars, no moon, no shadows of trees, nothing, just blackness. Her breath sped up and her heart started to race. She closed her eyes and prayed aloud. Father in heaven, please protect us. In Jesus' name, amen. When she opened her eyes, the night looked normal out her window. She could now see the stars, the moon, and the shadows. Frightened and perplexed, she slowly laid back down after a few more moments. Was she dreaming? Morning was slow to come, and Layla couldn't fully get back to sleep. Her mother was at the kitchen sink washing dishes when she came through. Dark circles shone under her eyes, and her mother asked if she was okay. Yes, Mama, I just didn't sleep well last night. I had a bad dream is all, she said. Oh, sweet girl, don't you worry about Joseph. He'll be home tomorrow, her mother said, leaning in to kiss her on the cheek. Yes, I know, but my dream wasn't about Joseph. At least I think it was a dream. Layla recounted the dream, not dream events to her mother. Her mother stood there listening and studying her face as she spoke. When Layla was all finished, her mother said, and looked out the kitchen window at her father in the field. Layla glanced at her father and back at her mother. Is that it, Mama? Layla pressed. Her mother looked back at her, face like a stone. Layla could see she was trying to control something behind her eyes. Lay, I want you to write down what happened, every detail you can remember, and give it to me, okay? Okay, Layla said, a little confused, but didn't question her parents when they asked something of her. She did as her mother told her, and when she handed her the written account of the dream not dream, all she said was thank you and folded the paper up and hid it inside her skirt pocket. Chapter 3. Joseph was done. Done with people haggling people, done with kissing people's butts, done with everything about this year's cattle sale. All sorts of out-of-towners had showed up, making the sale more exhausting than normal with bidding and security. Alex and Mac having to take double shifts watching the herds and fighting off raids every night. Alex put a bullet in one out-of-towner who didn't make it. But what was he to do? The man was stealing the cattle red-handed. Still, there could be legal repercussions he'd have to face. At least that's what Malcolm McKinney, the town attorney, said. No one has stepped forward to claim the body at this point, but should that happen, they could press charges against Alex, he finished. The thought made all of them sick to their stomachs. Damned thieves, Joseph said, slamming their hotel room door. I'll not have that kind of language coming out of your mouth in my presence, Arthur snapped. Joseph, Alex, Arthur, and Mac all stood around looking at each other, waiting for the next outburst. Joseph rubbed his head vigorously in his hands, making his hair stand on end. Max and Alex both gave each other a side eye, trying not to laugh. I'm sorry, Pa. I'm just so frustrated over everything the past 3 days, Joseph said as he fell back on his bed, crossing his arms over his face. I just want to go home, he yelled. Taking a deep breath, Arthur handed Max some money. Mac, will you go downstairs and buy a bottle of whiskey, please? Alex raised his eyebrow at his father. Whiskey? He questioned. After the past 3 days, I venture we could all use a drink. He wasn't wrong, he wasn't wrong, Alex thought. But it's been 5 years since he's seen his father have a drink. He must really be stressed about the events of the sale, or did it have something to do with the letter he received from Mrs. Taylor? Alex wasn't sure. When Mac got back, he poured everyone a glass. Standing, Max raised his glass and said, Here's to God, cattle, cash, and coffins. Let's pray no one opens it. Clink went the glasses. Joseph nearly choked to death at his first sip, making everyone else laugh their heads off, of course. Well, I'm glad I can bring y'all some joy through my pain, he said breathlessly. But soon enough, they were all sipping their whiskeys, letting those liquid embers burn through the stress. Ben was helping Layla feed the chickens when Joseph came riding up the road. Lay, Ben said in his most annoying little brother voice, Joey is coming. Ooh. Knock it off, Benjamin, Layla replied, more than annoyed. Finish feeding the chickens for me, please, she said, handing him her feed bucket. Sure thing, sis, Ben replied, smiling at her. He really was a good brother when he wanted to be, she thought. Thank you. And she went off to be with Joseph. Ben watched as Layla and Joseph walked through the fields, and he finished feeding the chickens like he said he would, and then he headed to the pig pens to meet his pa to get ready for butchering day. When Ben arrived at the pens, Arthur Mackenzie was there speaking with his father. He didn't hear all that they were saying, but he caught a little something about Layla and a dream. That's strange, Ben thought. Why would they care about a dream his sister had? Ben, my boy, ready for the pork harvest? Ben's father. Take two. Ben, my boy, ready for the pork harvest? Ben's father was also Ben, Benjamin Taylor II. Yes, Pa, ready as I'll ever be. Hello, Mr. Mackenzie, he greeted Arthur with the tip of his hat. It's good to see you, lad, Arthur replied. Is Joey with Layla? Arthur asked. Aye, it seems those two are always together these days, Ben said with a smile. Ben Sr. and Arthur laughed. Well, one day, not far off, I venture. After all, you are 15 now. You'll be courting a lady, too. Got your eye on anyone? Arthur asked. Ben was not interested in talking about the girls he found attractive to his pa and Mr. Mackenzie. Nah, just focusing on my work right now, he replied. Good lad, Arthur said, patting him on the shoulder. I'll see you later, Mr. Taylor, and let's see if we can get our families together for dinner real soon. Yes, Arthur, that sounds mighty fine, Ben Sr. replied. They shook hands and Arthur headed towards the farm. When he was out of earshot, Ben asked his father, What was that I heard about a dream Lay had? Is everything okay? Nothing to worry about, son, just a dream, he replied. But Ben's gut told him something else. Arthur and his father had looked worried when they were talking. Something wasn't right. It had been 2 weeks since the dream not dream, but Layla wasn't sleeping good. She felt horrible because of it, too. She lay in bed more tense than usual, like her body knew something was going to happen. But in her head, she kept telling herself that she's all worked up because it's All Hallows Eve. The other kids around had been telling ghost stories as they came by, and that is what had her on edge. She was just beginning to fall asleep when she heard a gentle tapping on her window. Her eyes widened. Oh, Lord, she whispered. Again, a gentle tapping, but this time in a rhythm she recognized. What? She said to herself. Slowly, she moved out of the bed to peek out the window, and sure enough, Joseph was standing there. Layla opened the window just a bit so they could talk. What are you doing? She demanded in a harsh whisper. You're going to get us in trouble, she finished, smiling. Joseph smiled back. Could you come outside with me? He asked. Layla glanced around the room at Ben and Lily still sleeping. I'll try, she whispered, and slowly began to get dressed. She could feel how cold the night air was and didn't want to catch a cold, so she put on her quilted petticoat this time and grabbed her cloak. She decided to go out the window since going down the hall would most likely wake up her father and mother. Leaning out the window head first, she wrapped her arms around Joseph's neck, and he slowly pulled her into his arms. Are you going to put me down? Layla asked. Actually, I was thinking about just holding you like this for a while, Joseph said, smiling at her. But he listened and set her on her feet. My pa will have my hide if he finds out about this, Layla said as they ran across the field toward the forest, giggling. Joey, what are we going to do? She asked as they reached the forest edge. Okay, hear me out, Lay. Penelope went missing on All Hallows Eve, and I thought this would be the best time to go search for her one last time, he said urgently, clasping her hands. Will you come with me? He asked. Layla felt a sick feeling in her stomach when he mentioned Penelope. She didn't know how, but she knew that her dream, not dream she experienced had something to do with Joseph's little sister. What had woken her up that night was the scream of that little girl. She was more afraid than she had ever been, but she said yes to him. Joseph picked her up, hugging her tightly and spinning her in a circle. Thank you, Lay. Thank you so much, he said, relieved. I tried to get Alex and Mac to come, but they told me I was being foolish. I hate to say it, Joey. I agree with them, but I can't say no to you, she said, holding his hand tightly. For better or worse, she said, giving him a nudge. Joseph smiled down at her. I hear you, Lay. And yes, one day soon we'll be married. This reassurance made her feel lighter, still scared out of her mind, but at least she knew that he would be there no matter what. Before they entered the forest, Joseph offered some praise, a prayer, and a petition to God. Father in heaven, you are worthy of all praise, and you know all things. We know you see Penelope wherever she may be. Father, if it will please you, let us find her tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Layla admired the faith Joseph was showing. Even after 4 years, he believed with all of his heart, Lord willing, they would find his little sister. Alex was watching as Joseph headed toward the tailor's. Oh, Lord, help me. He has lost his mind, he whispered in his head. Quickly fastening his gun belt around his waist, he headed out after him. Alex decided to saddle up Daisy, and he figured he'd head to the place where Penelope disappeared and be there when Joseph showed up. Ben had pretended to be asleep when he heard the tapping on the window and waited until the window was closed to sneak over and watch the direction that Joseph and Layla were headed. Towards the screaming cave, he whispered. What are they doing? Ben said, confused. Chapter 4? I don't know where I'm at. Alex could hear their footsteps in the distance. Someone's got to teach those kids to walk quieter, Alex thought to himself. Sounds like a herd of elephants. Alex dismounted and tied Daisy to a tree. The screaming cave was about 200 yards east. Joseph and Layla made their way up the mountainside towards the cave. Layla's heart was beating so fast from the hike and her anxiety about being in the woods at night on All Hallows Eve. The moon wasn't quite full, thank goodness, but at least it gave them some light to navigate by. Not that it mattered. Joseph knew these woods like the back of his hand. Layla stopped suddenly. What is it, Lay? Joseph asked, concerned. I feel like someone is watching us, Joey. I'm scared. Joey hugged her. It's okay. Let's take a moment and surely the two of you didn't come all this way just to make out, Alex said, emerging from behind a tree. Joseph and Layla both jumped about 10 feet. You big jerk, Joseph said, hitting Alex in the arm. Sorry, little brother, just couldn't resist, he replied, putting Joseph into a headlock. Let me go, he said, struggling to get loose. Alex obliged and tipped his hat to Layla. Lay, good to see you. Layla laughed at the brotherly display. Nice to see you too, Alex. It feels better with two Mackenzies out here in the woods. They both smiled at that compliment. So what's the plan? Alex asked, looking at Joseph. Well, I figured this could be one last attempt to find her, you know? I just can't give up knowing nothing was ever found. I need closure, Joseph said. Alex studied him a moment. What makes tonight any different than any other night or day that we've searched? Why is this night going to give you closure? Alex asked. Because of her, Joseph said, pointing at Layla. Me? Layla said, eyes as wide as dinner plates. Why me? Because of your not dream you told me about. Layla took a step back, looking at the two of them. She looked like she was going to bolt in the other direction like a scared rabbit. Lay, don't run, please. Hear me out. This past January, I was in our attic looking for something to do. Just bored out of my mind in the middle of winter, you know. Joseph centered himself between them and continued talking. I found a bunch of old journals Ma had kept. I started reading and saw that the year was the year Penelope had disappeared. So I dug deeper to find the journal from the day that she went missing. There wasn't an entry on that day or any day after for about 2 months. So I went backwards and started reading entries from before. Ma spoke of a dream that Penelope had had that sounded exactly like the one you had, Lay. where you woke up and you couldn't see anything out your window? No stars, no moon, no shadows, just blackness? Lord in heaven, Joseph, I don't like this, Layla said, wrapping her arms about herself. She was starting to shiver, but Joseph continued. Ma journaled that Penelope had the dream 6 times, and the last time was the night before she disappeared. Layla interrupted him. But I've only had that dream once, and it was 2 weeks ago now. I know, but I believe the scream you heard was Penelope trying to get your attention and ask for help. And I thought maybe, just maybe, having you here could give us a connection to her. I don't understand how or why I think this, but I think she's trapped. By what, I don't know. But Ma's journal entries mentioned something about an ancient ritual that folks would perform to connect to the spiritual world. Ma wrote that they would choose girls of 10 years old and keep them hidden to prepare them. Joseph questioned the sound of his story now that he was speaking it out loud. He looked to Alex, pleading for support, but Alex and Layla didn't know what to think or say. They just stood there, stunned by what Joseph was telling them. The boy is right, a deep voice called from the shadows. Mac walked up from below them. He had been hiding in a rock formation close by, listening to their conversation. Joseph and Layla jumped again. Alex snickered. I can smell you a mile away when you've smoked a pipe, Mac. Mac laughed at that. Yes, the smell is strong. I save my pipe for evenings when I'm not around you and your father. Well, thank you for that, Alex added. What do you mean the boy is right? Joseph speaks the truth. There are hidden tribes that do unspeakable things to young girls and make them available to the spirits. Mac paused a second, looking behind him. I think we'll have another one joining the party pretty soon. All of them peered down the mountainside, and sure enough, they could see a shadow coming up through the rocks. Who is that? Layla asked. Your brother, Max said. Ben? How do you know? I followed Joseph to your house and saw him climb out the window shortly after you did, Mac replied. No. What? Oh, well, then go pee. Joseph's face contorted as if trying to figure something out. Wait, how did you beat us up here without us hearing you or seeing you? He asked, bewildered. Who said I beat you? Mac replied, smiling at him. I can teach you sometime, but not tonight. Ben came up through the rocks where Mac had been hiding to see everyone staring at him. What? He said. You can't expect to sneak out and not have me follow you, he said, matter-of-factly looking at Layla. So what are we doing? Everyone laughed. We're going to find Penelope, Joseph said, still clinging to his faith. Mac, what are we dealing with, you think? Alex asked. Dark spirits, evil spirits. Some may seem as men, but are not. Some may seem as animals, but are not. Everyone shuddered at those words. How do we get Penelope away from them? Joseph asked. I only know one girl who was part of these rituals, and she wasn't rescued, she escaped. Mac looked at Joseph dead in the eyes, and she was never the same again. Layla had tears streaming down her face. Ben handed her a handkerchief. Thanks, Ben, her voice cracked. All the men reached out to her, and Alex offered a prayer of protection for them and Penelope before they headed to the cave. The fog got thicker the closer they got to the screaming cave. Knowing what they know now from Mac, that name had a completely different meaning. When the entrance of the cave came into view, they saw a dim light coming from inside. Mac had everyone hold up. Alex, you and I will go first to see what that light is coming from. It could just be a vagabond, he said. Aye, let's go, Alex said, drawing his pistol. Joseph and Ben stood on each side of Layla so she would feel safe. Layla threaded her arms into theirs and said, I am so thankful for the both of you. I'm thankful for you too, sis, Ben added, giving her a squeeze. Joseph leaned down and kissed her on the head. Lay, I don't want to know what my life would be without you. I am so thankful for you too. Ben made a vomit noise and side-eyed them, smiling. Joseph laughed. Ben, you just wait, my man. One day soon you'll get it. Layla gave the guys a chuckle and pointed up at the cave. Alex was motioning them to come up. When they got there, Mac was crouched down about 20 feet inside the cave. The smell of sulfur wafted from inside, and Layla covered her nose with Ben's handkerchief. Where is the sulfur smell coming from? Joseph asked Alex. Mac said it's the spirit. Mac joined them at the entrance. I cannot see where the lights are coming from, Mac explained. The spirits will try to distract them. They will use our darkest fears to attack us, but we cannot let them win. It's our decision, remember that. There was a fear in Mac's eyes that no one had ever seen. Have you done anything like this before? Asked Ben. No, Mac said, looking behind him into the cave. But my father and his fathers before him have. This kind of spiritual fighting has been my family's charge for generations. When I left to join the Legion and fight for the Confederacy, my family was very angry with me and the influence the white man had on me, he said, smiling and placing his hand on Alex's shoulder. My people believe, as you do, that everything happens for a reason. I believe this is the reason you and your father were allowed to capture me. This is to fulfill my family's mission. Alex likewise put his hand on Mac's shoulder. Allowed to capture you? He said sarcastically, making Mac laugh. Yes. No one had ever been able to keep me captive since the beginning of the war. I would always manage to get away, but there was something about your family that drew me to you. I didn't want to escape. Jesus has that effect on people, Joseph added. Mac nodded in agreement. Yes, and now your family's faith is my faith. We must use it to battle for your sister's life and soul. I pray that we are not too late. How do we know this isn't just normal men? Layla asked. There are men who work with the spirits to fulfill their purpose, just like we work with the Holy Spirit. We will need to listen to our discernment once we're inside to know how to fight, either with our physical weapons or our spiritual ones. Don't become prideful, Mac warned. Always keep humility in front of you. It is the Holy Spirit who will battle through us, giving God the Father and the glory through our faith in Jesus. A loud scream came from the depths of the cave, giving everyone a start. It wasn't an animal, and it wasn't like a human scream any of them had ever heard before. It penetrated their souls. They know we're here, Max said, turning to face the cave. Let's go. And he began to walk forward. To be continued.
Man, y'all went full on, didn't you?
Yeah, I had fun writing that.
Mommy, can you have that?
Can you have it?
It was so good.
It's fantastic, both of you. Oh my gosh, I love it. I feel like everybody did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wait, I'm showing my nails. This
You've already showed
I've showed them, but I haven't showed the world.
Oh.
Mommy did my nails, and they look so good. They were for
Yes.
homecoming.
They're mine
The pinky
Very,
nail,
very nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I painted mine purple.
those are pretty.
That's all I got.
Dee, are your nails painted?
No, they're not painted. Mine are just
But we will talk in chat, and next week we will have Dee Dee's story. And after that, well, we don't know yet. So stay tuned, right?
Yep.
All right. Subscribe and follow and leave a comment and do all the stuff from the doobly doo, and we'll see you later.
Go look at Spotify and Snappy Nana Cakes on YouTube.
Oh, there you go. Love you guys.
Love you
Love
guys.
you guys. It was good.